Welcome to the Red and Gold Report, your best source for weekly Chiefs news and updates. Chiefs football is back. Yes, I have been as excited for the Chiefs to be back out on the field as a Husky kid is for the class field trip to the Hostess Factory. I have been looking forward to the Chiefs preseason game. It's just great to see the red and gold back there out on the field. So in this weekly update, we're going to be reviewing that preseason game. We are going to be breaking down the linebacker position, and we're going to be examining some recent news like the first release of the depth chart for this season. And hey, if you want your weekly Chiefs news brought to you by a guy who used to see how much gum he could steal from the Chiefs locker room as a child, well, then subscribe to this channel. Of course, the big Chiefs news is recapping the Chiefs' Saturday night preseason game against the 49ers. The Chiefs won, but winning preseason games matters less than whoever won the horse riding thing at the Olympics. Like, it just doesn't matter. However, what is fascinating in the preseason is what players end up helping or hurting themselves in making roster spots or moving up and down the depth chart. So, which Chiefs helped themselves Saturday night? Most importantly, we got to see the Chiefs' fully renovated starting offensive line in action. Now, we only saw a few short drives out of them, but, they opened a few good holes in the run game and didn't really allow any significant pressures in the passing game. So it was a win for them. But my biggest impression was their power. You just looked out at these guys, and you look at the new guys, Brown, Smith, Tooney, Humphrey. They are all bigger than the guys that they were replacing from last year. It just looked like, man, they were pushing guys around instead of getting pushed around. So that was really good to see. But the individual player I thought helped himself the most was running back Jerick McKinnon. He played with burst and speed, putting in quality snaps in both the run game and the pass game. He led the team in rushing, averaging 6.3 yards per carry. He had a fantastic tackle as a special teams gunner in the third quarter. At this point, I'm really pulling for McKinnon to be elevated from third to second running back. Defensive tackle Tershawn Wharton also had a great game, playing primarily in the second quarter. Wharton had a sack, a forced fumble, and a number of pressures. He played a great game, and I think he should be close to solidifying his spot as the first defensive tackle off the bench for the Chiefs. Also, corner DeAndre Baker played well in coverage. The former Giants first-round pick is fighting for a spot somewhere between that third and fifth corner, and Saturday night he helped his case, though he did pull up with a little injury in the third quarter. Also, Chris Jones moved to defensive end, went pretty well. He had a sack. He looked good there. Darius Fountain also had a good game, leading the team in catches and reception yards. And then the interesting one I thought was Tim Ward. Ward had 2 sacks, led the team in tackles, and had 2 tackles for loss. He is absolutely buried on the depth chart at defensive end right now. But he was great. He clearly outplayed 4th-round rookie Joshua Kando, who just looked really slow. Which, brings us to the Chiefs that hurt their stock on Saturday night. Who didn't help themselves? Well, 4th-string running back Darwin Thomas certainly didn't help his chances in holding on to a roster spot. He didn't do anything when he had the ball in his hands, but he also got foolishly caught for taunting a defender late in the second quarter, and a significant penalty. Also, the second-team offensive line allowed more pressure than I expected in the second quarter. I mean, with all the experience on that second-string team, I expected them to just dominate the backup defensive line of the 49ers, and they just didn't. I guess I should probably add that the third-string offensive line also struggled, but that usually is the case in the preseason for any team. And then we have Juan Thornhill, the safety. The coaches had him out on the field in the second quarter and into the third, which that had to be really disappointing for the former starter and second-round pick, and it didn't help that he fell down in coverage in the second quarter and allowed for a nice gain. Speaking of safeties, second stringer Devon Key was burned for the long first half pass that I'm sure you've probably already seen the highlights for, but that's hard to grade him just on that one play. He was okay outside of that. Also concerning was kicker Harrison Butker. He missed an extra point. And that's scary because we all saw him miss 6 extra points last season. What in the world is going on there? He's phenomenal on regular kicks, and he can't do extra points. So that's who helped and hurt their causes on the Chiefs' first preseason game. In other news, maybe even more interesting, with the first preseason game in the books, we finally received our first official depth chart from the Chiefs website. I've been as excited to see the depth chart as my daughters are to meet Ariel at Disneyland, probably more excited. Here's my reactions on offense. I absolutely love the 3 starting rookies on offensive line. Things seem to be falling into place as I was hoping to have them start. Humphrey is starting at center and should be for the next decade. Trey Smith starting at right guard to provide that size and toughness we needed. And, well, Niang is on the right tackle starting spot, while Mike Rimmers is listed as the backup left tackle and Andrew Wiley is listed as the backup right tackle, which is really interesting there. Other than offensive line, the other thing to mention is that all that online chatter of Robinson pushing Hardman for the second wide receiver spot proved to be as worthless as a Raiders Super Bowl promise. Hardman has indeed been listed as the second wide receiver. Now, heading over to the depth chart on the defensive side, the shocker is that the team has listed Chris Jones as a defensive end. Now, we all knew that they were playing with the idea of putting him back and forth between end and tackle, but to list him as the starting end, that was a bit of a surprise to me. The all-pro defensive tackle apparently spent his offseason at Jenny Craig as he lost some weight, looked great out there, and was able to move outside. In one way, the move is obvious. The Chiefs' defensive ends are as bad as the Chargers in any second half of a game, and they just don't show up. However, the worry is that the Chiefs lose the dynamic inside pressure of Jones, like batting passes down. However, Reed and Noddy have been listed as the starting defensive tackles, and you know what? They're quality starters. Unfortunately, on the depth chart, Frank Clark is still listed as a starter after his multiple run-ins with the law this offseason. Instead of being listed as in the unemployment line, like, well, I think he should be. And you know, speaking of the defensive ends, it's interesting that Taco Charlton, who the media has talked up all offseason, is currently listed as only the 5th or 6th defensive end, depending on how you read the depth chart. Disappointingly, linebacker Anthony Hitchens is listed over Nick Bolton at linebacker, and surprisingly, Sorensen is currently slated to start over Juan Thornhill at free safety, which hopefully doesn't mean the Chiefs are giving up on the former second rounder and promising youngster in Thornhill as the long-term starter at free safety. Man, he was out there with the backups on Saturday. The only other position to mention in the depth chart is it looks like corner Mike Hughes has indeed earned that starting slot corner spot. Now, the Chiefs took a chance trading for the former first-round Minnesota Viking disappointment, but it looks like it just may pay off. And hey, in the preseason game, he even had a nice return in special teams. In other news, the Chiefs will play their second preseason game on Friday night, August 20th, against the Cardinals. Here's a question for you. If you were Big Red Andy Reid, would you play Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey in this preseason game? Or would you just leave them on the bench? Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. In other news, 4th string tight end Nick Keiser and former Chiefs center Dan Kilgore have both retired. And the Chiefs have waived 17th string wide receiver Chris Finke. None of these moves matter any more than my morning constitutional. In other news, if you're not paying attention to rookie right guard Trey Smith, you really should be. Smith, he's been going toe-to-toe with Chris Jones and the starting defensive line in camp. He looks like a legit starter. He just looked huge out there in the preseason game. Even though he was a 6th rounder, you got to remember it was only because he had a bit of a heart issue. The dude is legit. You got to keep an eye on his development in the preseason. Now, with that recent news out of the way, I've been taking time each week to grade a different position group for the Chiefs. This week, we turn our attention to the linebackers. Now, if you've been watching the Chiefs linebackers for the last few seasons, you know that they have stinked as bad as week-old fish. So it was nice to see the Chiefs allow former starter Damian Wilson to walk in free agency. And the Chiefs have heavily invested in the linebacker position in the draft recently. 2 drafts ago, the Chiefs drafted Willie Gay in the second round. And in this last draft, they drafted Nick Bolton in the second round. In the modern NFL, you really only start 2 off-ball linebackers. So 2 second-round picks back-to-back drafts, that is a big investment. Last season, the team kept Willie Gay on the bench for much of the season, even though he was outplaying the starters. The assumption is that without a proper off-season program and COVID and all that, he didn't have time as a rookie to really learn the system. Unlike the linebackers the Chiefs have been trotting out the last few years, Gay is really athletic. He ran a 4.46 40-yard dash at the combine, second best the year he came out. He's energetic, he's speedy, and he is a hitter. Rookie Nick Bolton is a perfect complement to Gay at linebacker. He's tough, he's a physical tone setter, and he reads offenses brilliantly. My hope is that these 2 players are the starters for the next decade at linebacker. It would just be like peanut butter and jelly, the perfect combination. The speedy Willie Gay dropping into coverage and beating running backs to the corner. And then on the other side, you got Bolton rocking guards on their heels and guessing running plays like he had been in the offensive huddle. I think they could be a great complement. But the obstacle to this dream is a man named Anthony Hitchens. Now, I want to make something clear. By all accounts, Hitchens is a great leader, a great teammate on the field, and a good man off the field. After Frank Clark, Hitchens is the player that drives me the craziest on the Chiefs. As I watch Chiefs games, I'm constantly noticing that it seems like number 53 only gets involved in the game 10 yards down the field. He's slow to react, he's slower to fill gaps in the running game, and slow to stick with receivers in the passing game. Now, in case you think that it's just me, I'm just being a jerk, maybe I am a jerk, and you assume the coaches are correct and I'm wrong, you need to know Pro Football Focus has rated Anthony Hitchens at a 49.7 out of 100 last season. That's awful, but it only gets worse. He received a PFF grade of 44.4 in 2019 and 37.5 in 2018, which essentially means he probably does not rate even as a backup, but he's now listed as a 4-year starter for the Chiefs. Hitchens originally came to the Chiefs in 2018 as a big money free agent. He is taking snaps away from players that are younger, faster, and better than him. I've got no axe to grind against him. He seems like a great guy, but the problem is I want to see Bolton and Gay out there. It's for the best of the team. The Chiefs could currently save $5.8 million in roster salary by cutting him. Next year, that increases to $7.8 million, though they do still have $2.8 million in signing bonus and $1.4 million in a roster restructure bonus to pay him in both this season and next. Long and short of it is this: they probably need to cut him to give opportunities to the younger guys. After Hitchens, Gay, and Bolton, the Chiefs have some interesting pieces for depth. Last year, safety Daniel Sorensen often moved down into the box, almost playing as a linebacker on sub packages, and played there decently at times. Then there's Ben Neiman, who won't win any NFL athleticism awards, but he knows the system and he is a solid special teamer. That's a good backup, which is what you expect out of a fourth teamer. The only other player to mention is 4th-year linebacker Dorian O'Daniel. O'Daniel is a former 3rd-round pick who played a lot of safety at Clemson before switching to linebacker in the NFL. He's kind of a mystery to me. He's athletic, he's fast, he has promise as a coverage linebacker, and in his limited snaps, he has actually consistently outgraded the Chiefs starters at linebacker. I'm not saying he's awesome, but I wonder why the Chiefs won't ever quite give him a chance to see more playing time. Maybe be that 3rd or 4th linebacker. So the Chiefs linebacker position, it's hard to grade. I mean, with Gay and Bolton on the roster, the Chiefs have some young, highly drafted, immensely talented players that could perfectly complement each other for the next decade. I mean, they could be amazing for years and years to come. However, whether it's because of the money they invested in him or his status as a key team leader or wanting to be right about an important free agency signing, the Chiefs seem like they might be doomed to start Anthony Hitchens again at linebacker. So, what grade should I give him? Well, if Hitchens starts again, then we have to give the linebackers a C minus. But if the team will allow Gay and Bolton to start, it really is in like a B minus, B quality unit just because of the immense potential. So that's your red and gold report for the week. If you want more weekly Chiefs updates, make sure to subscribe right now to this channel on YouTube, and go Chiefs.